Listen closely, folks, for the tale I'm about to share is not for the faint of heart. It's a story that'll make you question what's real and what's not. A story that might just keep you awake at night, wondering what's lurking in the shadows beyond your window. So settle in, and prepare yourselves for a most unsettling tale of the Michigan Dogman.
In the dense forests of northern Michigan, tales of the Dogman have persisted for generations. These mysterious creatures, said to be half man and half wolf, have been a part of local folklore since the late 19th century. The first reported sighting dates back to 1887 in Wexford County, but it wasn't until the 1930s that accounts began to spread more widely across the state. Our story takes place in the small town of Sears, Michigan, nestled on the edge of the Manistee National Forest. It was here, in the summer of 2024, that Melissa Thompson's life would be forever changed by an encounter with the legendary Michigan Dogman. Melissa, a 40-year-old park manager for Sears, had lived in the area her entire life. She was familiar with the Dogman legends, but had always dismissed them as nothing more than campfire stories meant to scare tourists and children. Little did she know that her pragmatic worldview was about to be shaken to its core. It began on a warm July evening. Melissa was conducting a routine night patrol of the park, checking for any campers who might have overstayed or any potential fire hazards. The air was thick with the sounds of crickets and the occasional hoot of an owl. As midnight approached, an eerie silence fell over the woods. Suddenly, a twig snapped nearby. Melissa's head jerked up, her flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. At first, she saw nothing. Then, a pair of eyes reflected in the light, eyes that were too high off the ground to belong to any normal forest dweller. Heart pounding, Melissa slowly stood up. The creature emerged from the shadows, and she found herself face to face with something that defied explanation. It stood over 7 feet tall, covered in dark fur, with a canine head atop a muscular, bipedal body. The Dogman's yellow eyes locked onto hers, a low growl emanating from its throat. Melissa's mind raced to rationalize what she was seeing, but there was no denying the reality before her. As the Dogman's yellow eyes bore into hers, a flood of thoughts rushed through her head. Her daughters, Kathy, 12, and Jody, 8, were at home waiting for her to return from her night patrol. As a single mother and the sole provider for her children, Melissa had always prided herself on her strength and resilience. But now, faced with this impossible creature, she felt a primal fear unlike anything she'd ever experienced. Images of her girls flashed before her eyes, their smiling faces, the sound of their laughter, the warmth of their hugs. She thought of all the moments she might miss if she didn't survive this encounter: Kathy's upcoming soccer championship, Jody's first day of middle school, countless bedtime stories and shared meals. The thought of leaving her daughters alone in the world, without her protection and love, filled her with an overwhelming determination to survive. Melissa's maternal instincts kicked into overdrive, fueling her with a fierce resolve. She knew she had to make it out of this forest alive, not just for herself, but for Kathy and Jody. They depended on her, and she refused to let them down. This burning desire to return to her children gave her a sudden burst of courage and clarity. The Dogman took a step forward, and she stumbled backward, tripping over a fallen log. As she scrambled to her feet, the creature let out a bone-chilling howl that echoed through the forest. Despite her terror, Melissa's mind sharpened, focused on one goal: getting back to her daughters. She would fight, run, or do whatever it took to see their faces again. Panic overtook her, and Melissa ran. She crashed through the underbrush, branches whipping at her face as she fled. Behind her, she could hear the heavy footfalls of the Dogman in pursuit. It was faster than her, gaining ground with each passing second. Just as she thought all hope was lost, Melissa burst out of the tree lane onto a park access road. The headlights of an approaching parked vehicle blinded her momentarily. She waved her arms frantically, and the truck screeched to a halt. Without hesitation, she yanked open the passenger door and threw herself inside. "Drive," she yelled at the startled park ranger. As they sped away, Melissa looked back to see the dogman standing at the edge of the forest, its glowing eyes following the truck until it disappeared around a bend. In the days that followed, Melissa struggled to come to terms with what she had experienced. She pored over historical accounts of dogman sightings, finding similarities to her own encounter in reports dating back decades. The more she researched, the more she realized that the line between myth and reality was far blurrier than she had ever imagined.
And so, my friends, next time you find yourself in the forests of Michigan, remember Melissa's tale. For in the shadows of those ancient trees, who knows what mysteries or monsters might be watching and waiting.